at Hopkins, they talk about being denominator medicine, and that's a little bit geeky, but what they're talking about is looking at the entire population and using statistics and using science to figure out what's really causing this problem.
Yeah.
And sometimes coming up with some surprising um, answers.
Yeah.
One of those surprising answers that's occurring right now in my space is that we, the medical community, has always thought that LDL, quote, bad cholesterol, was the cause, the biggest cause of this problem. Yes, we all knew about smoking. Yes, we all knew about full blown diabetes. But a couple of interesting things have happened. Smoking, still, hands down, it's radioactive for your arteries. Both in terms of diabetes and in terms of quote bad cholesterol, we got a couple of big surprises happening right now. One of them is diabetes is far more common than we ever thought. We used to think that, and you'll see it in some of the old, if you can find old CDC statements, they used to say a third of 60-year-olds have diabetes or prediabetes. Things have changed both in terms of our awareness and in terms of the prevalence or how common this is. At this point in time, at the last NHANES, National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, it's part of the US Census where they actually do lab tests. They found that starting at age 18, not age 60, the prevalence or how common it was over 50%,
Mm.
52% specifically, starting at
Wow.
age 18, not 60. So there's a lot more diabetes, prediabetes, metabolic disease than we ever knew was going on back in my
Yeah.
day at Hopkins 40 years ago. The other thing that's coming up that's a big interest point and a big surprise point for a lot of doctors, and in fact, I would say 98, 99% of them still are not even aware of it, or if they're aware of it, they're just not accepting it yet. And that is, it's appearing that maybe LDL is really not the problem that we thought it was. And it boils down to an issue of causality versus correlation. For the vast majority of people, as they begin to get into their metabolic disease, their diabetes or prediabetes, as it begins to get worse, their LDL starts to creep up. So we've always looked at that in the medical community and said, oh, well, you know what? There's such a correlation here. LDL must cause heart attacks, vascular disease, heart attacks and strokes, blindness, kidney disease. And now there's a new group of people, and it's happened because of the popularity of the low carb diet,
Mm.
where you're beginning to see these people whose LDL shoots up 180, 250, 350, 450, 550, and higher, and yet they're not forming plaque.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of interesting things going on in the prevention space. But if you go back to nitric oxide, again, there's some basic science there that's not changing, um, and that you and I may want to talk a little bit more about.